Director Peterson, followed by Director Woodward.
Thank you, President Bonds. Just a quick question and maybe a comment. Will we get something? You know, I know it was quick because Third Friday was just last week. Will we get something a more detailed enrollment list? I mean, I like what you have with the 5 years plus the projection plus what they get. Will we get a report on that?
President Bonds, Director Petersons, yes, we do have it school by school, and we'll have an audited list for you in about 2 weeks.
Okay. Can I make a request that if you can put the report, at least one form of the report, maybe in groups of neighborhoods where the schools are, the certain neighborhoods, or maybe split them up into the districts, the board, so we can kind of see, instead of having the school in alphabetical order, we can kind of see if there's 3 schools within a 10-mile radius, we can see what the schools have been doing, and maybe the flow of some of the students have been going out of one school to the other. If that's something that's possible that you can do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent and
Yes,
Director Woodward.
thank you, President Bonds. I have a map in the office next to mine where I've actually plotted the schools on this list, and like I said, it's pretty overwhelming in a certain part of the city where a large number of these schools their enrollment is just draining right out. Also keep in mind, there were a large number of schools that had 110% of their projections. Because if you have a number of schools that have less than 90 and you come out to your projections, you also have to have schools that are over the projections. So we did have schools that actually were over the projections, which was also a healthy thing.
Director Woodward, followed by Director Spence.
As we traveled around the schools during the first week when schools opened, there were some of the principals at those schools stating they were below their level. I don't see them listed here, those that were mentioned that they were below the number school, like Alliance and Juneau, and the discussion about those schools that were below their level, and you were encouraging them to get their levels up. Number 2, French immersion. There was a great combining of schools into that school. And would that have increased their rates? And what type of things, and I noticed most of these schools that are listed here are schools that are on the north side. In fact, most in my district, and I'm very concerned about this. And I'm trying to figure out, what are you suggesting happen to these schools? And what efforts have been made to increase? And you have anything you can show me that you have made efforts to increase the academics? Also, there were about 3 of the schools had new principals. You brought another school in at Hopkins, and I see you have them listed here. Milwaukee African Immersion School, which you also have here. This is in the North Division Complex, which we are in process of turning back to a regular high school, and with your council that you've appointed. And I was just wondering, why was it included in here? With Genesis still in that building, and I don't see Genesis listed here. I know they are scheduled to leave. So these are some questions that I have regarding what I see in this.
Okay, President Bonds, I'll see how well my memory is. At 61, I'm not sure, so we'll give it a try. Number 1, the Alliance School, their enrollment projections were down on their middle school, because remember last year the board increased their contract to add a middle school. But the school's enrollment projections were based on 6 through 12. So their overall enrollment was within 90%. I can't give you the exact figure, but it didn't meet the 90% threshold. So they must have filled up pretty well at the high school, but their middle level, because the program hasn't catched on yet, it was what? Yeah. It was 125% enrollment at the high school. So that school was okay. The Juneau schools even though they did say that they lost some children because of the move, and I think that was Director Falk's question, but their overall enrollment was within the 90% factor. When we went to North Division, like we said, we didn't look at where the schools were located. We didn't look at everything. This was just done by, running the numbers of all the projections and which ones were under 90%. So that school, you remember, and that one actually is kind of odd in here when you look at the number, because that school, remember there was a concern about the children that were in Truth and the children in Metro, and the board wanted to make sure that those kids had an opportunity to stay in the building when we made the decision to close the schools. So by doing that, that upped their projection to, I think it was like around 700 or 750, because I think even Director Falk had the motion, if I remember correctly, to add the children into the number that we had. So that number then became the projection. So what happened there is a lot of the children that were in those schools chose not to stay at North and actually chose to go to other high schools in the district. So that's why that one had a projection variance. So this account, as I said, every school has a story. There's some on here that, if I would have done it by stories or something, I probably wouldn't have put it on the list, but we wanted to do it without having a story, without any subjectivity. We wanted to do it strictly objectively by the data. We know that we're doing the work at North and the advisory committee, and we're working on that. Regarding the academic achievement of some of these schools that are low academic are the very schools where we put extra resources in them. We have had, some of them are NEA focus schools where the NEA has put a couple $1 million into the district as being schools that are sci-fi in need of improvement. Not only have we put additional financial resources, but we put additional personnel in these schools. We have worked very hard to improve the performance of the schools. So, the other thing is, the district in the 90s and later 80s was really a district of chance. We looked at if we had a good teacher and a good principal, the school was successful. Well, that methodology is gone. I mean, Spence started that in his end of his tenure, and that's what we've been working on the past 7 years, to have a more systemic approach to from school to school, classroom to classroom, in all of our professional development and all of the efforts that we're doing, eliminating, the chance of whether a school is successful or not. So I think we're closely at a point that we can say that if a school isn't performing, then there's other factors, maybe the personnel, maybe the combination of personnel, maybe other factors that are causing some of the problems of why the school isn't gaining, like other schools are in the district, that are similar in demographics. And I think that's the value of the value-added analysis that we're doing. I think I kind of captured most of your questions.